We're out marching for our lives to have our rights taken away. Please take away our ability to defend ourselves against tyranny. What the fuck are we doing? Why did we have a Declaration of Independence? In a word, freedom. We had to justify our separation from Britain by detailing the king's abuses. What was he doing? Well, he was doing us dirty as fuck. Stealing, raping, sleeping in our beds, doing things that are completely unacceptable by anyone's standards, regardless of your experience, your political affiliation. These are wrongs committed by an authority that we would have a difficult time resisting. He's the king. So the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written to free and empower the people. Every line is intended to be read with the understanding that when we forfeit some of our freedom to delegate certain responsibilities to the state, namely the preservation of our rights that we encoded in the Bill of Rights, our human rights, civil rights, the preservation of those rights, and national security. Those are the duties of government. Not healthcare, not welfare, not making my neighbor paint his fence, not prohibiting me from barbecuing my front yard. Those are not the duties and responsibilities of the government. So we have to accept responsibility for our actions as individuals and restrain the state from encroaching on our power as individuals. The supreme individual is an idea that was born in the West, in Greece, the cradle of Western civilization. The idea that no law, no rule, no imposition should supersede the supremacy of the individual. What's up, Nate? So with liberty comes responsibility. You have a responsibility as an individual not to impose your will on others. When I give you this freedom, when I give you this ring of power, you are now, that carries with it the responsibility that you're not going to impose your will on others, that you're not going to harm others, that you're not going to violate their property rights. With power comes responsibility. It's in the Batman movies. It's in every story. Lord of the Rings. You give the power to the person who doesn't want it, if you want it wielded properly. So why a constitution? Power. You have to restrain power. Religious organizations, banks, and kings were and are the most powerful organizations on the planet. At the time these documents were drafted, they were the most powerful on the planet, and today they're the most powerful on the planet. The person who creates currency owns the nation. What's his name? The Astor Rothschild? Give me control over a nation's currency and I care not who makes its laws. Powerful statement. The person who creates what we consider wealth, money, who effectively owns the economy, that's the true power in a society. That's the true power on the globe. Those who create currency and those who are able to wield the power that it generates. So that Constitution, that Bill of Rights, gives us the power to restrain power. Once we give that ring to the government to secure our borders, to secure our individual rights, that power grows. It's an unintended consequence of forfeiting that power that it begins to consume more and more. And it's consuming it at our expense. It's important to understand that any power you give to a third party is power that you no longer have. I don't think people realize that. And it's difficult to explain to people that once you give something up, it's almost impossible to give it back, especially if you're giving it up to a third party with the kind of power that the government has. So you can't the First Amendment. You can't let a religious organization wield the power of the state against the people. You have to protect people's right to speak out and speak unpopular ideas like, hey, maybe we should abolish slavery. That's a very unpopular idea. What if it had been effectively suppressed? Maybe we should give women the right to vote. What if that had been effectively suppressed? What if the idea that we should declare independence from Britain had been suppressed? Those are dangerous ideas. Those are unpopular ideas at the time, especially. If those ideas had been suppressed effectively, where would we be today? What would the country look like? I don't, it's tough to say, but I don't think it would be better. I think that's a safe assumption. The free press. The duty of the press is to hold those in power accountable in real time. We have a segment of the population, people whose occupation it is. It's their duty to observe and report the happenings within that power structure. And I understand it's difficult to be the dispassionate observer. It's hard to not let your biases and your emotions color your perception of those happenings. But objective reporting is so important. A free press is so important. And when the press is being wielded by various entities within that power structure against one another, the party that is truly losing is us, the individuals. It's not the Democratic Party that's losing power. It's not the Republican Party that's losing power. It's not the fucking libertarians who are all trying to wield this ring against one another. You're the one they're wielding it against. Their salary's not affected by tax cuts. Are you kidding me? Their connections in this military industrial complex, selling arms, Oshkosh, fucking Halliburton, they're not going to be affected by these tax cuts. You are. You get to keep more of your paycheck as a result of these tax cuts, and you have a press that's telling you it's bad. These are crumbs. $1,000 a month that you get to keep to maybe buy your kid nicer clothes for school. Those are crumbs. Come on now. And petition and assembly. This is still the First Amendment. Petition and assembly. You have to have the ability to petition your government for a redress of grievances. What does that mean? Government does something that pisses me off. I need to be able to write my congressman and say, this shit pisses me off, without a fear of reprisal. That's codified. That is your right to be able to petition the government. And it's your right to be able to assemble and say, hey, do you guys also get pissed when the government takes more of your money and doesn't give you anything in return for it? I think that's called taxation without representation. I believe that's the reason we severed the ties with England. But no problem today. But your ability to gather people together, to have a march for our lives, please take our rights away. It's codified. You have the right to do that, and without reprisal from the government. There are going to be consequences in your social relationships. If you go out and demand that somebody take away our freedom of speech, you're probably going to piss some people off. And they should hold you accountable as your peers. But the state should not be able to impose its will on you. So, the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the preservation of a free state, or the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's not saying that the militia gets to bear arms. It's not saying that muskets are okay, but not semi-automatic rifles. That's not saying that, well, your ability to hunt can't be limited by the government. This shit has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with muskets, and it has nothing to do with militias. It has to do with your ability to resist a tyrannical government. And it's vital that people understand the context in which these documents were written. We had a king that was sleeping in our beds. And the means with which we had to resist that tyrannical imposition was the arms we had to protect our farms at that time. Our ancestors fought and died to be able to give us these tools to prevent that from happening again. So we can't take that lightly. And we need to understand why these things were codified, and that efforts to limit or disrupt or eliminate those rights need to be viewed very, very skeptically. We look at our history, we see a trend. What do governments do? What do dictators do when they want to impose their will upon the people? Well, they eliminate the means with which the people have to resist tyranny. What are those means? Well, there's a reason they're first and second in the Bill of Rights. Speech, assembly, petition, right to bear arms. Those two rights help you protect the rest. We like to think it couldn't happen in the United States. Well, it can never happen here. We're too free. We got it too good. We're too rich. There's no way our government would try and impose its will upon us. There's no way they would make us go through magnetic resonance imaging body scanners just to travel from one state to the other on a plane. No way. We would have to demand it. Well, we did. There would have to be some sort of problem and a reaction, and then the solution offered would have to be worse than the problem itself, and we'd have to accept it, which we did. So what's different about us than people who lived in the former Soviet Union or early communist China? What's different? If, like me, you believe that all humans are created equal, there's nothing different about us. So what's different about our circumstances? Well, that's what I've been talking about. We have codified into law our ability to resist that from happening. What's different under a President Trump than under a Adolf Hitler or a Mao Zedong or a Pol Pot or Joseph Stalin? What's different? Well, they didn't have codified into law the people's ability to resist a tyrannical dictator and tyrannical government. These rights are immensely important, and they are the two first and foremost rights that protect all of the other rights. And efforts to limit and eliminate these abilities, these powers, I don't even understand how people can utter the words that they do when they say we need to limit these powers. We need to limit our own rights. I don't get it. We still have the power to resist tyranny. And those powers have been under attack since they were granted, since they were preserved. And maybe it just seems more important now because I happen to be alive in this little blip of history. I feel like it's especially important, or maybe it's been worse than ever. Things have never been worse. Like that tendency to think that I'm the center of the universe. My ego is supreme. Well, you understand what I mean. My lens colors my perception, just like everyone else's. That's about all I got. I don't want to keep rambling, but those two rights are so important, and it's so discouraging, and it's saddening and sickening to see children being used to exert state authority and to limit our freedom. Same thing Hitler did. We got to protect the children. We got to take away the guns, and we got to keep people from saying things that might offend them. It became part of the public consciousness in the universities, but now we have high school advocates being funded by national campaigns and organizations to go out and demand that we give up our rights. You can't possibly question these sad children who just saw their friends killed. what better puppet to use than someone that it's impossible to disagree with, or you're literally the devil. If you think that these kids are wrong, you are the worst type of human being. It's disgusting to see it happening. And it's disgusting to see that people don't see that this has happened before. It's disheartening. All right, gang, I'm going to get to this homework.